Pyra was a world unlike any other, an oceanic planet dotted with volcanic islands, its fiery core driving the tectonic instability that made life on the surface both dangerous and prosperous. It was this geothermal energy that powered the human colony, a marvel of science and engineering. Pyra's capital, Volcanus, rose from the volcanic rock like a fortress of fire, an industrial city where heat was a resource, not a hazard. Captain Mira Valen stood on the observation deck of her command base, staring out at the horizon where the molten glow of the volcano met the shimmering blue of the ocean. For years, humanity had thrived here, harnessing the raw power of the planet to fuel its technology. But now, their dominance was threatened. The enemy came from the depths, Aquiians, a mysterious aquatic species that had claimed the ocean long before humanity arrived. For months, they had been launching attacks on coastal facilities, disrupting the delicate balance that kept Pyra running. The attacks were growing bolder, and rumors spread of something more dangerous brewing beneath the waves. Mira's job was simple: defend Pyra. As the leader of the Pyra Defense Corps, her squad was trained to fight in the harsh, fiery environments of the volcanic islands. But nothing had prepared them for war beneath the sea. "Captain Valen," a voice broke through her thoughts. It was Lieutenant Talon Varos, her second-in-command. "Dr. Zale has something you need to see." Mira turned, her brow furrowed. Dr. Farron Zale was a brilliant but eccentric scientist, known for his obsession with the planet's geothermal core. His theories often bordered on the outrageous, but he was also their best hope for countering the Aquians' mysterious energy source. In the lab, Zale stood over a holographic display of the planet's mantle, the lava flows pulsing beneath the surface like veins of fire. "The Aquians aren't just attacking us," Zale said without preamble. "They're after the core." Mira frowned. "The core? Why?" "They've found a way to manipulate the ocean's currents to destabilize the volcanoes. If they succeed, Pyra will implode. Every volcanic island, every city, gone." The gravity of his words sank in. If Zale was right, the Aquians weren't just fighting for territory, they were aiming to wipe out humanity entirely. "They're trying to kill us at the source," Mira muttered. "What do we do?" Zale's face darkened. "We strike first. I've detected a surge of energy in the deep ocean, likely where their main base is. You'll need to get there before they can destabilize the core any further." Mira nodded, her resolve hardening. This was no longer about skirmishes on the surface. This was a war for survival, and she intended to win. As Mira gathered her team, the weight of their mission pressed heavily on her shoulders. For Pyra, for humanity, she would descend into the abyss. Tomorrow, they would dive into the deep. The darkness of the deep ocean closed around the inferno as Captain Mira Valen and her squad descended into the abyss. The submersible hummed softly, the only sound in the eerie silence of the ocean's depths. Outside, the water was pitch black, broken only by the occasional flash of bioluminescent creatures darting past. They were miles below the surface now, far beyond where humanity had ventured before. "Depth at 10,000 meters and counting," Lieutenant Talon Varos announced from the control panel. His voice was steady, but Mira could sense the tension in the air. They were in Aquians' territory now, and the further they went, the more they could feel the weight of the ocean pressing down on them. "How's that energy reading?" Mira asked, her eyes fixed on the viewport. Dr. Zale had detected a powerful surge of energy deep beneath the ocean, and Mira's mission was to locate its source. The Aquians were using this energy to destabilize the volcanic core of Pyra. If they succeeded, the entire planet could collapse. "Still off the charts," Talon replied. "Whatever's down there, it's massive." Mira's heart raced as the sub drew closer to the unknown. The Aquians had been attacking Pyra's coastal cities for months, but now it was clear they were after something much bigger, the planet itself. If they didn't stop them, there would be no more Pyra to defend. Suddenly, the scanner beeped, and a massive structure appeared on the screen. "There," Talon said, his eyes wide. "That's it." Mira leaned forward, staring in awe at the sight before them. Rising from the ocean floor was an enormous city, glowing faintly in the dark water. It was like nothing they had ever seen, organic towers of coral and stone intertwined, pulsating with energy. The entire city seemed alive, powered by the ocean's currents. "This is their base," Mira muttered. "We've found them." But before she could give the order to proceed, the water around them began to shift. From the shadows, sleek, blue-skinned figures appeared, moving with deadly grace through the water. Aquian sentinels. They swam in perfect formation, their bodies gliding effortlessly through the depths. "We've been spotted," Talon yelled, as the sentinels closed in. "Evasive maneuvers," Mira shouted. The Inferno lurched as Talon steered the submersible hard to port, narrowly avoiding the first strike. The Aquians were fast, their water-based weapons slicing through the water with terrifying precision. "Return fire," Mira ordered. The sub's torpedoes launched, cutting through the water toward the sentinels, but the Aquians were too agile. They dodged the attack and countered, unleashing a torrent of high-pressure water that slammed into the Inferno, rocking it violently. "We can't take much more of this," Talon warned, his hands gripping the controls as the sub trembled under the assault. Mira clenched her fists. They had to get out of here, but not without first gathering the intel they needed. "Hold them off," she said, her mind racing. "We're not leaving until we know what they're planning." Pyra was burning. Captain Mira Valen sprinted through the shattered streets of Volcanic, the capital city now a war zone. Overhead, dark clouds swirled as the ocean and sky collided in a chaotic fury. Towering waves crashed against the shore while volcanic tremors shook the ground beneath her feet. The Aquians had unleashed their full might on the island, and humanity was struggling to hold the line. "Mira, we need backup on the eastern front." Lieutenant Talon Varos's voice crackled through the comms. "They're breaking through." Mira dodged falling debris as she reached a high vantage point. The city, once a beacon of human ingenuity, was now a battlefield. Aquians' forces, riding massive tidal waves, breached the city's defenses, their water-powered weapons carving through Pyra's remaining forces. Human soldiers, armed with flamethrowers and thermal guns, fought fiercely, but the sheer power of the Aquians' water manipulation was overwhelming. "We'll hold them," Mira replied, trying to stay calm amidst the chaos. "Tell Zale to hurry up with that weapon." Dr. Zale's experimental device, the last hope for turning the tide, was still being assembled in the volcanic core beneath the city. The plan was to harness the island's geothermal energy and convert it into a devastating pulse that could cripple the Aquians' forces. But time was running out, and every second Pyra drew closer to collapse. Mira glanced toward the ocean. Rising from the depths like a dark god was Zephyrus, the Aquians' leader, commanding the battlefield with ruthless efficiency. His towering presence was wreathed in swirling water, the very ocean obeying his will. Under his command, the Aquians were relentless, their aim clear, to extinguish the flame of humanity once and for all. Mira's jaw clenched. This wasn't just about survival anymore, it was personal. She rallied her squad and charged toward the eastern barricades where the heaviest fighting was taking place. Soldiers braced against incoming waves, firing bursts of superheated plasma into the advancing Aquians, but the water-dwellers danced through the chaos, their fluid movements a stark contrast to the humans' rigid, desperate defense. A sudden explosion rocked the ground as an Aquian's shockwave blasted through the barricade. Mira was thrown back, her head ringing from the impact. As she struggled to her feet, Zephyrus himself stepped through the breach, his eyes locking onto hers. "You cannot fight the tide, human," he said, his voice a low, resonant growl. "Your fire will burn out, and your world will drown." Mira raised her weapon, but before she could fire, Zephyrus lashed out with a torrent of water, knocking her weapon aside and slamming her into the ground. Pain shot through her body, but she forced herself to stand, glaring at him with defiance. "I won't let that happen," she spat. Zephyrus surged forward, his water blade slicing through the air. Mira dodged, narrowly escaping the lethal strike. Their fight began, a brutal dance of fire and water, each attack representing the survival of their people. As flames clashed against the tidal fury, Mira knew this battle would determine Pyra's fate. The heart of Pyra's volcano roared beneath Captain Mira Valen's feet as she descended into its fiery depths. The air was thick with heat and ash, the ground trembling from the volcanic energy barely contained within. This was it, the final stand. Behind her, Lieutenant Talon Varos and the remaining soldiers followed, battered and exhausted but determined. Dr. Zale was already in the core chamber, working feverishly to complete the weapon. His plan was the last hope for humanity, a massive geothermal pulse that would annihilate the Aquians' forces and stabilize the volcano. But Mira knew the cost. It could also devastate the planet's ecosystem, possibly even kill the Aquians entirely. "We're running out of time," Talon said, his voice strained. "If Zale doesn't finish soon, the volcano's going to blow, and Pyra with it." Mira's heart pounded, not just from the heat but from the impossible choice she faced. If they fired the weapon, they could save Pyra, but at what cost? The Aquians, for all their aggression, were fighting for their survival too. Could she really destroy them completely? Before she could answer, a sudden tremor shook the chamber, and from the shadows emerged Zephyrus, leader of the Aquians. His blue skin gleamed in the volcanic light, water swirling around him like a protective barrier. He had come, not as an enemy, but as a challenger. "You would burn this world to the ground to save yourselves," Zephyrus said, his deep voice echoing off the molten walls. "You think fire can conquer the sea? You are wrong." Mira stepped forward, her body aching from the previous battles, but her spirit unyielding. "We didn't come here to destroy. We came to survive. But if you keep pushing, I'll do whatever it takes to protect my people." Zephyrus' eyes narrowed. "Even if it means sacrificing everything?" Mira hesitated. She could see the desperation in his eyes, the same fear and determination that burned in her own. Both of them stood on the edge of annihilation, and only one path seemed to lead to survival. But then it hit her, there was another way. "We don't have to do this," she said, her voice firm. "We can stop this war. Pyra's geothermal energy can be shared. We can find balance." Zephyrus sneered. "Balance? After all this bloodshed?" Mira stood tall. "Yes. If we keep fighting, we both lose. Fire and water don't have to destroy each other, they can work together." For a moment, silence filled the chamber, broken only by the rumbling of the volcano. Then, Zephyrus slowly lowered his weapon. "Prove it." Mira turned to Dr. Zale. "Shut it down. We're not firing the weapon." Zale hesitated, but Mira's resolve was clear. "There's another way," she said. Together, Mira and Zephyrus worked to stabilize the volcano, using both fire and water to contain the eruption. The molten core roared, but their combined efforts brought it under control, a symbol of the fragile peace they had forged. As the fire subsided, Mira looked at Zephyrus. "We survived. Now let's rebuild."